Hello, everybody, and welcome into Commodity Culture, where we break down commodities markets, sound money principles, and geopolitics, all with the goal of making you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day. Today is December 12th, 2025, and I'm thrilled to welcome Peter Schiff to the program, an economist and global strategist at Euro-Pacific Asset Management and the host of the Peter Schiff Show. Peter believes that silver is likely headed to $100 in 2026 and gold to at least $5,000. He outlines his thesis for both forecasts, along with giving his take on the death of Fed independence and the new QE. How will it affect the economy and precious metals prices ahead? President Trump recently called out Peter on Truth Social, calling him a Trump-hating loser and berating him for bringing up the cost of living crisis in America. Peter gives his response to Trump's tantrum and so much more. Before we dive into it, the new Stack Silver Not Fiat t-shirt is now available in the Commodity Culture shop. Finally, a shirt for silver stackers by a silver stacker. So pick one up today. The link is in the description below. And now strap yourselves in for my conversation with Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff, great to have you back on Commodity Culture. Of course, the big story in the commodity space right now is silver, with the metal soaring past $64 an ounce before dipping back down to around the $61 mark last time I checked today. It wasn't that long ago that $50 silver seemed like a distant fantasy, and yet that turned out to just be a stepping stone to where we are today. The calls for triple-digit silver are now growing louder. Do you think we'll see $100 silver in 2026, and your overall thoughts on silver's trajectory?
Yeah, I think that there's a very reasonable probability that silver prices hit $100 next year. I don't know if it's going to be early or late in the year, but I think it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen next year, it'll happen, the following year. But I think more likely next year. I mean, we have a lot of volatility, but once we broke above that $50 double top, I think that set a new floor for silver. I doubt silver is going to go even back down to 50. I think that we're headed significantly higher. We're trying to maybe find a new trading range in here before we have another leg up. But I think the catalyst for the recent move was not only the Fed rate cut, but basically what amounts to the return to quantitative easing. Even though the Fed's not admitting it, that's exactly what they're doing. And I think as the Fed is forced to expand that program and buy longer dated maturities, that's going to be an even bigger, more powerful headwind for both gold and silver.
Tailwind, I think you meant there. But
exactly. Yeah. Tailwind.
Yeah. I actually, you set me up perfectly, because my next question was going to be about the new QE. It looks like it's back, rebranded as Reserve Management Purchases. I want to read a tweet you wrote on X. It said, QE by any other name is still inflation. The Fed just announced it will be buying T-bills on an ongoing basis. Given that long-term rates will rise on this inflationary policy shift, it won't be long before the Fed expands and extends QE to longer dated maturities. Got gold. So could you expand on that for us? How do you think this new version of QE will impact the economy, financial markets, and the gold price?
Well, it's just going to add more inflation into the economy. I mean, I think the last few times the Fed did quantitative easing, they got a bigger boost to consumer spending and to asset prices. I don't think they're going to have the same type of luck this time. I think that when you're cutting rates and creating more inflation, when your inflation that you already have is well above your so-called 2% target, I don't think the markets are going to react as favorably in the short run this time as they did the last couple of times. I also don't think that you have foreigners, foreign central banks who are willing to, go along with this as far as buying more treasuries and propping up our bond prices and propping up the dollar. So I think that it's going to be a very different reaction. And rather than stimulating the economy, they may end up sedating it, because this policy could backfire and cause long-term interest rates to rise, as well as consumer prices, which are already rising. People are already complaining about the affordability crisis. Well, what the Fed is doing is going to worsen that crisis by making things even more unaffordable than they are now.
Well, let's hone in on the gold market for a moment because last time I had you on the show, you said you thought gold could climb to $12,000 this cycle. We've come down slightly from all-time highs, but the setup continues to look extraordinarily bullish. How do you foresee gold performing ahead in 2026?
Well, it should be another strong year for gold. I think 5,000 is kind of a, minimal target. Maybe more likely, if you're looking for round numbers, we should get $6,000 gold sometime in 2026. That would obviously go along with $100 silver. I think both of those are reasonable targets. But ultimately, both metals are going a lot higher because I do think that we're going to have a U.S. dollar and a sovereign debt crisis. And obviously, if that crisis hits next year, gold and silver prices can go a lot higher than that. But even if we manage to kick the can down the road throughout all of 2026, I think both metals could easily hit those targets.
In what I would consider a badge of honor and a sign you are on the right track, President Trump attacked you on Truth Social recently, calling you a Trump-hating loser before stating he thinks prices are going up when in fact they are coming substantially down. So being attacked for simply stating the facts is pretty insane, but then to have the president try to gaslight the American people and tell them to ignore the higher cost of living and pretend everything is great is really something else. With this guy steering the ship, is there any hope the U.S. government can get its financial house in order?
Yeah, he also called me a jerk too. And the irony of it is he said all this on Truth Social. So clearly the truth has got nothing to do with what you post on Truth Social. They may as well rename it Lie Social because I told the truth and that, caused the president to have a meltdown. And I think what he really didn't like was that I was telling the truth on Fox News. He probably wouldn't have cared if it was on, CNN or MSNBC or CBS or something, because Trump supporters don't watch those networks. But what he didn't like is that I'm telling his loyal followers, who religiously watch Fox News, he doesn't want those guys getting the truth. He wants them to be brainwashed by a parade of, pro-Trump propaganda that's being disseminated through Fox News. Because I watch Fox News. I mean, and 90+% of the people just praise Trump and how great he is and how great the economy is. Yet one guy comes on and says that's not the case. And, he goes ballistic, even though it was like 6 a.m. Who the hell was awake? Especially like on the West Coast, it's 3 a.m. I mean, only in the East Coast. But no, Donald Trump is wide awake in bed in the White House. I assume he was still in bed. And he's watching Fox News. And, probably when I came on, he probably thought, oh, here's another guy that's going to talk about how great the economy is and everything. And he's ready to hear me praise the Trump economy and what a great job he's doing. And then I come out and I talk about how he's not doing a good job on prices and affordability is going to go down. And I guess he kind of lost it. I really got under his skin. But the question remains, am I going to be back on Fox News again? I mean, or did he pull some strings? But if he gets me kicked off of Fox News, that really shows you where he stands on free speech, because, that was a big part of his campaign to allow freedom of speech, because the Democrats were, clamping down on that and trying to punish people for saying things that, weren't supported by their woke agenda, deplatforming people. And he was very much against that. And I agreed and I supported his stance to protect the First Amendment. But somehow, if he doesn't believe that I should be able to say something negative about the economy, that would be very hypocritical of him. But we'll see. Because I don't do that particular show that often, Fox and Friends, but I had done it like a week or two earlier, and it wasn't like they didn't know what I was going to say. I mean, they asked for my position even before the segment. That was a day before. And I told them, yeah, I think inflation is getting worse. I think Trump's policies are inflationary. He's not bringing the cost down. But it's crazy, too, that not only did he say that I was wrong about prices going up, he said they're going down. He didn't say they're just going down. He said they're going substantially down. I mean, I don't know any prices that are going down, let alone substantially down, other than gas. I mean, yes, oil prices, gas prices have come down. I just don't believe that that's sustainable. I think that that's a temporary relief that we're getting. But the price of just about everything else is going up. I don't know what the president is looking at when he's talking about prices going down. I don't see it. I see everything going up. And I think the public is sharing that experience.
Yeah, and meanwhile, he's having multi-million-dollar parties at Mar-a-Lago with Ronaldo and all these tech CEOs. I think he's a little bit out of touch with the fact that for the average American, it's very tough out there. Cost of
Yeah, and
living's
I don't
rising.
like that ballroom that they're building at all. I think it's a disgrace. And Trump makes a big deal about, well, we're not using taxpayer money. I'm getting donations. Well, I don't know what concessions are being made to get those donations, right? Which really amount to bribes to the Trump administration. But even if it's not taxpayer money, this money that corporations are donating to build this extravagant ballroom is money that could have been invested productively. It could have been donated to charities. I mean, why do we need this ballroom? I mean, it's the White House. It's not a palace. The whole idea was that the president was going to live in a house. Yes, it was a larger house, but we were not supposed to elevate the president to the status of a king. Yet Donald Trump wants the White House to be a palace so he can hold court and have these extravagant balls. And of course, all those balls are going to be paid for by the taxpayers. How much are they going to cost? How often are we going to have a White House ball? I don't like any of that. It's a bad look, especially when the country is struggling. It's to me, it was like, it's like a Marie Antoinette kind of let them eat cake moment. So it's not, it's not good, and yet the president doesn't care. I mean, I just think this is terrible that this whole thing is being constructed in the White House. And now, of course, it's going to be there for future presidents to abuse it and have lavish parties, that we're going to have to pay for.
The sponsor of today's episode is ARC Silver Gold Osmium. Owner Ian Everard is praised even by his competitors as one of the most honest and level-headed bullion dealers in the United States. They have some great prices. You can see some of them displayed right now on screen. Take advantage of these specials today by reaching out to Ian at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com. Make sure to tell him, of course, that Commodity Culture sent you. And now, back to the interview. Well, Trump is, speaking of bad decisions, in my opinion, Trump is going to be appointing a new Fed chair next year and has made it very clear that there will be further rate cuts. We at least used to have the illusion of Fed independence, but now it looks like the new chair will just be taking orders directly from the president. What do you make of this here? It seems like this is just corruption right out in the open.
Yeah, I mean, I've often said that it was just a pretense that the Fed was independent, that it was very much political. But we're going to be dropping that pretense. And of course, if the Fed chairmen are there to do the bidding of the president, well, then that applies to future presidents too. It's not obviously just Donald Trump, although the person that Trump puts at the Fed will be there after Trump finishes his term. So in theory, if a Democrat comes in, the question is, will Trump's guy or gal, but it looks like it's a guy, but will Trump's guy be just as loyal to the next president? I don't think it's going to be J.D. Vance. I think it's going to be a Democrat who's going to be the next Fed chairman. So will they have to wait until this term is up to put, their rubber stamp puppet in there? But all of this is going to undermine confidence in the dollar, in the U.S. economy. It's going to lead to higher long-term interest rates, higher inflation. It's one of the reasons I think that gold and silver are making the moves that they are. I think it's not just that people are losing confidence in the fiscal responsibility of the United States, but in the monetary independence of the Fed. And that's been a big factor in enabling the dollar to continue as the reserve currency. And That's why I think that it's in the process of losing that status to gold.
Well, the broad market continues to grind higher despite absurd valuations on stocks that are pricing in AI completely changing the world and potentially driving massive profits in the future. Is AI as significant of a technology as it's being made out to be? And do you think the broad market where it stands right now is in a bubble?
Well, I think pretty much everything is in a bubble because of the Fed. I mean, the bond market's a bubble, the stock market, the housing market, crypto. I mean, that's why housing is unaffordable because the Fed inflated a bubble with 0% interest rates and buying mortgage-backed securities. Um, but for the AI, yeah, I think the stocks are in a bubble. Um, but I do think that AI probably represents the most significant advancement, um, maybe, ever. I don't know, or, certainly in my lifetime. And I don't know, you could say, is it as fire or the wheel or something, something really big. But I think it does have um, profound implications because one of the resources that we have that limits abundance is labor, right? There's only so many people that can perform so many hours of labor, and some of it is mental labor, right? Not just all physical. It's thinking, right? Tasks require a cognitive ability, an ability to reason, right? Not just brute strength. But with AI and the ability to not only have AI, just existing in cyberspace, but existing within, robots, right? Because we're working on robotics and we're working on AI. We have the potential to vastly expand resources for labor, and to the extent that we could mass produce enough intelligent robots and other artificial intelligence so that AI could do all the work that we're doing now. Well, that's great for humanity because now we don't have to do that work. And, we don't, and these, the robots, they can work 24/7, right? And the computers can be processing and doing whatever they're doing. But also the idea that if we create all this artificial intelligence that is vastly more intelligent than we are, even the smartest, humans, and they get to work on solving problems, imagine what they can come up with in a short period of time. I mean, maybe things that would take humanity hundreds of years or thousands of years to invent, maybe they can invent it in a few years. And so maybe we can find cures to all sorts of diseases. Maybe we could find ways to vastly extend our lifespans, and make our lives, much better because we won't have to work. We'll have a lot of stuff without having to work to produce it. So there's a lot of potential there. But I think that whatever valuations are being ascribed to these stocks are probably extremely excessive. I have no idea, how AI is ultimately going to be distributed. And in general, the benefits should not necessarily just be to the companies that are, spending all this money building out data centers. It should be to the individuals and the businesses that are able to utilize it in such a way that they become more productive. But who knows? I mean, a lot of this spending may end up being a waste. I don't know. I mean, we don't know, how things might be improved, what we're preparing for. Will we actually need all the data centers that they think we need? Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll be able to, maybe it'll be more efficient than we think. I have no idea. But right now you have companies being rewarded in the market simply because they're spending money and they're spending a ton of money. And a lot of these companies are now spending money, investing in each other and then paying the money right back. Like there was just, there was just a deal today or yesterday, Disney made a deal with ChatGPT where ChatGPT is going to start paying Disney a bunch of money, but they're getting the money from Disney because Disney's making a big investment in ChatGPT. And then they're just going to spend some of that money licensing Disney's products. But I mean, all this is just like money just going back and forth like a shell game. And, but the markets are just rewarding everybody. So it has all the hallmarks of a of a classic speculative mania. So it's going to be a big shakeout in the AI stocks, just like there was in the dot-com stocks. Sure, the internet, was a big deal, and life is different now because we have the internet. I think AI has an even greater potential to have an even more profound impact, but that doesn't mean that most of these companies aren't overpriced, and a lot of some of these new ones won't go bankrupt before that happens.
Now, the question that always comes up when it comes to a crash or potential large correction in the broad market is what will happen to gold and silver, the metals, and the mining stocks. Do you think that they will sell off dramatically in that instance as well? Do you think in such a scenario they'd recover faster than perhaps other asset classes? And would that be a buying opportunity in your view?
Well, I think any decline like the one we had an hour ago, is a great buying opportunity. I don't expect there to be that big a decline because I don't think the markets are going to make it that easy for people to buy because I think prices are still much too low. And I think at this point, you have a lot of investors who want to get into this market. And so there's too much buying beneath the market for the market to correct that substantially. I think there will be sharp sell-offs to kind of get the day traders who are trying to be cute and just maybe come into the market with some leverage positions intraday. I think, they still have to have risk there. It can't be just like one-sided, can't lose. So keeping the speculators honest, I think you're going to see plenty of sharp declines like we had today, but not major declines. So I think you've really got to get into this market to the extent that we do see sell-offs. I expect them to bounce back very quickly. If we go into a major stock market meltdown where stock markets are down, 20, 30, 40, 50%, yeah, gold stocks could get dragged down, but I don't think they'll go down as much, and I think they'll come back much quicker. And a lot of it depends on what gold does. I mean, if we see a major drop in the stock market and we also see a drop in gold, okay, then the gold mining stocks are going to get hit. But if we see a surge in the price of gold, if the money that's leaving the stock market goes into the gold market instead of the treasury market, it'd be hard to imagine, gold moving up substantially and the gold stocks ignoring that and going down. You would think that they would rise as well.
Well, speaking of gold and silver miners, what a tremendous run they've had this year. The GDX ETF up around 140%, the SIL ETF up around 150% year to date. I think this ties into what you were just explaining, but for those who haven't entered the sector at this point, would you be waiting for a dip, for a pullback here, or do you think the greater risk is the mining stocks continue to soar and leave those waiting to buy the dip in the dust?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger risk is missing out on the rest of this bull market, which is going to last for quite some time. So yeah, I mean, and I also think that the risk is going to be that there are going to be a lot of people that are going to take profits too soon. They're going to say, "Oh, I've doubled my money or I've tripled my money. Let me get out." And look, selling some, taking some of your profits off the table. I suppose I can't necessarily argue with that as a risk management strategy. But I think that we have a long way to go. And so I think that, people that think, okay, it's time to cash out and look for something else. I think that that's going to be the mistake that people make, thinking that it's a top, thinking that, they've made enough money and they want to get out, because I think we're starting from such a low level. Even if, the stocks double or triple, you got to look at where they moved from, and where they, how low they actually were, relative to, pasts and where they're likely to go. Because I think earnings are going to explode for these companies. And so I think the valuations, are way too low, that the market is not factoring in and crediting these companies for what they're likely to earn in the future, not just from today's gold prices and silver prices, but from the gold and silver prices that we're going to have in the future.
You're probably one of the people in the gold and silver space who does the most media appearances and the most high profile media appearances, appearing on Fox multiple times. And throughout your career, obviously, you've made many media appearances. I'm just wondering, when it comes to sentiment out there in the mainstream press surrounding gold and silver, what are you sensing? Is it still being scoffed and laughed at these levels? Is it being kind of belatedly accepted? Are people getting enthusiastic about it? And what do you think it will take for the talking heads on CNBC, et cetera, Jim Cramers of this world, to really start pumping up gold and silver? And is that a point where you'd look at, hey, maybe it's time to take some profits and get out here?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they barely even report on it, let alone pump it. Even today, I was watching CNBC this morning, and this is when gold is up like $60. Silver's, still at record territory, up above 54.30 or something, or 64.30. And as they're going into a break, they say, "Oh, let's take a look at the markets. Oh, the Nasdaq," and they talked about the Nasdaq. Let's look at Bitcoin, and that was it. They didn't even bother with the precious metals. And in fact, I was watching yesterday, and they said, coming up, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and whether or not we're going to see a rebound next year. But they hadn't even mentioned gold or silver yet, because I was waiting for that. And gold and silver, they don't have to talk about a rebound. We're at record highs. So they're not even barely reporting on it. Yeah, once in a while they do mention a gold or silver stock, but they don't really encourage anybody to buy into it. They just kind of mention that it's gone up. They're still trying to, direct their audience to Bitcoin. So I think before CNBC even remotely starts to advocate for gold or silver, or have guests like me that come on, I never come on that network. But if they have people that are real, gold people, it's probably not going to be till after all the air comes out of the crypto bubble and the crypto community no longer can afford to advertise on CNBC. Because, right now they're trying to, pander to their advertisers. And I think the crypto advertisers don't want anybody focusing attention on gold, because they're trying to get people to buy Bitcoin instead of gold. And I think this is what's happening right now, and gold should be very problematic to the Bitcoin pumpers, because why isn't Bitcoin going up if it's digital gold, and if it's supposed to be better than gold? If gold is going way up, then Bitcoin should be going up even more. But instead, it's down as gold's going up. So they got no explanation for this other than, well, gold moves first and Bitcoin moves second. Well, who says? And why? I mean, why wouldn't it already be moving? If Bitcoin is going to move on the rate cuts and the return to QE, why isn't it moving now? Right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense that it just waits for gold to stop going up and then Bitcoin all of a sudden magically starts going up. It doesn't make any sense that that would happen. Maybe that happened a few times in the past, but that might be more of a coincidence than anything else. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that every time gold goes up, Bitcoin must go up later and must go up more. I think it could just come crashing down. In fact, the fact that it's not rallying is a good sign that it's about to go way down.
Well, fantastic insights as always, Peter. Tell us about Euro Pacific Asset Management and the Peter Schiff Show.
Well, Euro Pacific Asset Management is my registered investment advisor, and I would strongly advise people to work with us. We manage 5 mutual funds that are just crushing it year to date in performance. You can get all the information on my funds. My gold fund, by the way, is Euro Pacific Gold Fund, EPGIX. That's the no load symbol for that. We also have wrap accounts where we manage portfolios in the 5 funds. We have separately managed accounts for larger investors who would prefer to have their own account and not be in a mutual fund. But you can talk to the representatives there. Just go to us. Go to the website at europac.com. There's an 800 number there. You can call. You can fill out a online form, and somebody will be in touch with you. Also, if you don't own any physical precious metals yet, hey, we got a pullback going on. Gold's actually back to positive on the day, but silver is still down. So buy it. I don't think it's going back to 50. So if you buy it at 61, that's not that bad. If I'm right, it's going to 100 next year, and that's not going to be the top. So you can buy some physical gold and silver at Schiff Gold. I'm also encouraging people to sign up for an account at tgold.com. Right now, that's a page on the Schiff Gold website. But if you go to tgold.com, you can buy some gold or silver. We'll store it for you. Ultimately, that's gold and silver is going to get tokenized if you want that. And we'll have the option to take delivery either in physical form or in a token through a blockchain. So, I'll have my own token. I believe that tokenized gold is probably the only thing that may be viable when it comes to blockchain. we'll see. But I don't think, fiat tokens like Bitcoin are going to have any lasting value. But so you can go there. And the Peter Schiff Show, that's my podcast. I do that once or twice a week, schiffradio.com on my YouTube channel. So you can subscribe to my YouTube channel or, go to Schiff Radio. And also follow me on social media, like my X, almost at 1.3 million followers now on X. You read one of my posts earlier. I'm constantly composing them. Sometimes I have to respond to Trump. We'll see if he if he mentions me again. I challenged him to a debate or his designate. I love to debate somebody from the Trump administration, but I doubt anybody will have the courage to do it. And of course, politically, it makes no sense because I'll make whoever they put up there look foolish. And, so it's probably not going to happen. And, we do have a newsletter at Schiff Sovereign. People can sign up for our newsletter, free newsletter, by going to schiffsovereign.com. You get, 2-3 different emails a week with a lot of good insight into current events and my take on what's going on.
Great. I'll put all of that in the description below. And for what it's worth, I'd love to see you versus Scott Bessent. I think that would be a fantastic debate.
I do Bessent and what's his name? Commerce Ludnick, Howard Lutnick. I'd like to do both of them. Two on one. Yeah. I still don't think it's a fair fight. They probably need a few more guys, but yeah, those are the biggest loudmouths in the administration that say a bunch of nonsense. So I'd like to debate those guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Peter.
Even their assistants, give me somebody.
Send somebody. Send
somebody
them in.
to try to.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, for coming on the show again.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us today. Our sponsor, ARC Silver Gold Osmium, has some great prices on gold and silver bullion products. They are on your screen right now. These are while supplies last and subject to change. So reach out to owner Ian Everard today at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com, and make sure to tell him that Commodity Culture sent you, and be sure to pick up your Stack Silver Not Fiat t-shirt in the Commodity Culture shop, backed by a 100% quality guarantee. The link is in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.